Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Mark Andrew Holacek, Thomas Jefferson Scholar, philosopher, historian, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of The Real Thomas Jefferson. Today we'll be doing philosophical vignettes. The topic will be truth, right? One of those obsolete concepts, if Gary Wells is correct, that was characteristic of the Enlightenment, but it just doesn't apply to us today. I received a letter last night from someone, and this person talked to me about a recent trip that he and his wife had made to Monticello. He says he's a little leery. I'm going to go through the contents of that letter without revealing the person's identity because I think he doesn't want his identity known. And so we'll go through the letter. And I want to start off by, I'll make some comments on the letter, but I want to start off by looking at some quotes of Jefferson on truth. I have here 3 quotes from Thomas Jefferson on truth. I have an encyclopedia I made. One chapter, as it were, it's several thousand pages long, filled with quotes. One chapter is on politics, one on religion and ethics, the third on education, the fourth I call collectania. So from the ethical chapter, I get these 3 quotes. He has a large number of quotes on truth. Truth is the proper and sufficient antagonist to error and has nothing to fear from conflict, unless by human interposition, disarmed of her natural weapons, free argument and debate, errors ceasing to be dangerous when it is permitted freely to contradict them. Preamble to the Bill for Religious Freedom. Beautiful bill. Nor was it less interesting to the world that an experiment should be fairly and fully made where their freedom of discussion unaided by power is not sufficient for the propagation and protection of truth. Second inaugural address, and from a 1810 letter to Reverend Knox. Truth and reason are eternal. They have prevailed. They will eternally prevail. However, in times and places, they may be overborne for a while by violence, military, civil, or ecclesiastical. Well, with respect to that last letter, we're going to talk about some civil overbearing. We can talk about the role of Monticello in deciding the truth or falsity. Now, here goes the letter. He writes, Dr. Holacek, I want to help restore the honor of Thomas Jefferson, one of the greatest men in American history. Why? After a recent and very disappointing tour of Monticello, I searched the internet for the truth regarding Thomas Jefferson. I was pleased to find that you had several videos on correcting the record, and I wanted to help. Last month, the wife and I went on a vacation to see Monticello. My wife didn't want to go at first because she heard that the tour had gone woke, with an extreme left-wing view on just about everything, especially slavery. Not wanting to believe it, I went to the Thomas Jefferson Foundation website to find out more. I watched a few videos on what I should expect to see and hear during a visit. I made my final decision based on a video by Dr. Jane Kamensky. She's the new president and CEO of Monticello, Thomas Jefferson Foundation. I was led to believe that the current tour will be different. It's based on hard history, told with integrity, backed by evidence. Let's underscore this, told with integrity. See here. Backed by evidence. The tour theme would be on the politics and partisanship of our early national period with a focus on Thomas Jefferson versus John Adams. So based on that, we went to Monticello, thinking we would not be lectured on the evils of slavery or the hypocrisy of Thomas Jefferson, who owned slaves. Boy, was I wrong. Before it could even go through the doors of the east entrance, we were told by the tour guide that Thomas Jefferson, among other evil deeds, fathered 6 children with slave Sally Hemings. On and on it went. At every stage and every room, we were lectured on the hardship of slaves running the plantation and the dark, dirty secret they all knew about their cruel slave master, Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson is my favorite president. I've read a few books on him, was appalled to hear slanderous lies about Thomas Jefferson and his views on slavery that were still being told as given fact. Less than halfway through the tour and taking all I could stand, and I asked questions regarding the known history, questions that if answered correctly would debunk what I was just implied, i.e. what I was just told. I was told to stop recording the tour and she would answer them later. Very important. Can't talk about this. Don't record this. After the tour ended, I asked the guide off to the side if she ever heard about my counterpoints before. She said she knew about them, but she is not allowed to acknowledge them because the Jefferson Foundation supports only the views of the Hemings descendants. No other views are permitted. So much for the promise that the tour would be on hard history, profoundly true, evidence-based. I'm thinking about writing a complaint letter to Dr. Jane Kamensky, telling her about my experience in the off chance that I got a road tour guide who needs additional training. But before I do that, I thought I would ask an expert like you if it'd make a difference at all. So let's go back to this here, right? No other views are permitted. Let's go back to these wonderful quotes. Unless by human interposition disarmed of her natural weapons, free argument debate. There is no free argument debate at Monticello. No other views are permitted. Second quote, unaided by power, unless some power intervenes, no other views are permitted. The third quote, in times and places they gave reborn by for a while by violence, no other views are permitted. Now, I am really disheartened. When I do these shows, we don't always have extraordinarily large viewership, and that's a shame. But I have, as a philosopher and as someone who has large appreciation for the history of philosophy and science, studied early on as I went to school, Aristotle, Plato, the Greeks, and the Roman philosophers and scientists, studied the history of science, read Galileo, Newton, Kepler, Boyle, and so forth, Albert Einstein more recently, Charles Darwin, and studied history of philosophy and religion. I'm really dismayed that something like this still goes on today. Why is it that Monticello, they've made this investment? They've been doing this for 25 years. This is their of Thomas Jefferson had this profound respect for the truth. If long as you don't intervene with things, the truth will get out. Monticello's been doing that for 25, this is 26 years, and they continue to do that. We don't allow discussion on this. We understand that there's a contrary view, but we have invested so heavily in the descendants of Sally Hemings, and they have. Let's put it this way. They have told the descendants of Sally Hemings that somewhere in Thomas Jefferson, in your lineage, you are a scion of Thomas Jefferson at some point. What if that's not true? And I, have said in a number of occasions, it's not true. Then we've been lying to people for over 25 years about who they are, where they came from, and things like that. We don't have a right to play with truth. All we can say, as I said, I've gone on record several occasions saying it just didn't happen, and I still believe that's true. But we don't have a right when there is so little evidence that has a bearing on this issue to say it definitely, as they do, 2018, we're going to close the books on this. Thomas Jefferson just had children with Sally Hemings. Now, I'm not asking anybody to stand up and agree with me that it certainly didn't happen, even though I believe that full-heartedly, and I've done research. I've probably written more than anybody in the world on this issue against the liaison. But I ask you to open up and read all relevant literature. That is the pro-paternity literature, the Peter Onuf stuff and the Gordon Reed stuff. And read my literature, Bob Turner's literature, Cynthia Burton, and so forth, and Bill Hyland. Read all the stuff. Look at the evidence rather carefully. This is what brought me to Thomas Jefferson in some measure when I started looking very, very carefully, and my expertise is logic in some measures as a philosopher. I realized the case for pro-paternity was tremendously weak. In fact, the case anti-paternity is much, much stronger. And yet they go on prating at Monticello that Jefferson definitely fathered 6 kids. You can't do that. This is a complete disregard for the truth. Now, I end with saying, please contact the people at Monticello, Dr. Jane Kamensky. I'll leave an email address so that you can contact her. but please ask for open discussion. We're not asking to say Holacek is right and they're wrong. We want open discussion because the case is far from closed, right? And unless there is some additional DNA evidence that has a bearing one way or the other on an issue, it's an open issue. And it is the evidence points strikingly against paternity, and it is for the pro-paternity people to come up with some very, very cogent arguments to show otherwise. And all the while, as I'm saying this, I got this strange feeling that someone's standing over my shoulder and peeping. I don't know who that is. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. This has just been a short vignette and wanted to share that letter. And I say to you, please like this. It's short. Please share it. Please email Jane Kamensky at Monticello and ask for open discussion on this issue. There I am, yours truly, TTFN.